Seeing that Predator made so much money, 3 years later Predator 2 was released with mixed to negative results. Taking place in 1997 Los Angeles, during a police intervention in a gang war in the heart of the City of Angels. The Predator comes from the literal jungle to the concrete one. The film starts off promisingly with the gang war, and this was a huge opportunity to introduce a badass who would later go on to fight the Predator. Someone like Sylvester Stallone or Jean-Claude Van Damme. However, we get Mike, played by Danny Glover. It isn't a bad choice as he was part of the Lethal Weapon series, but when you go from this to this, it could seem a bit lackluster. Joining the cast is Gary Busey as Peter Keyes and Bill Paxton as Jerry Lambert, who is also in another sci-fi sequel, Aliens. This isn't the only connection to the Alien franchise, however, and we'll get to that later. Lambert also serves as the Shane Black of the film, and in both cases, it doesn't fully work. As opposed to the slow building reveal of the Predator in the first film, hell, we didn't even see him till halfway through the initial run, Predator 2 has the Predator show up in the first seconds of the film, which I guess is okay, but it's just a bit quick to the action. Like in any good film sequel, there must be some new improvements, things that would make sense, and in this film we get some new technology like the staff and shrinking razor wire, among many other things. And like any sequel in a horror franchise, the body count also rises. The only returning factors in The Predator is the composer, Alan Silvestri, and the writers for the first film, Jim and John Thomas. While it is nice to see the original film writers return for the sequel itself isn't as interesting or fun as the first film. The script is also kinda weird. There's a scene where a kid interacts with the invisible Predator at a cemetery, and it's just as weird as this scene from Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Want some candy?
Are you a giant? Can we be friends?
However, through Gary Busey's character, the film adds a good connection to the original film, even if his character wasn't even in the first one. The only interesting part of the film to me was the entire Glover-Predator plot, where the Predator keeps messing with him. How over time, in his investigation, his teammates get taken one by one, eventually leading to the climax. The ending fight is admittedly a little bit too long, and he could have trimmed a tiny bit off to improve the pacing. There are also some new things I like, as the way they try to catch the Predator is kind of interesting, and the new visor tech the Predator has in his arsenal is admittedly a cool addition. Some of the editing in this film is a bit odd, however, but nothing truly awful. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the other Easter egg that links Alien and Predator into a franchise. In the Predator ship, we see the alien skull mounted on the wall. While initially a nice tease like the Freddy Claws in The Evil Dead and the Necronomicon in Friday the 13th, it spawned something actually bigger. Starting in 1991, Dark Horse Comics started publishing and releasing the Alien vs. Predator comics, which eventually garnered enough support for a film adaptation in the early 2000s, and a sequel to that one. Not only if they adapted this for a screen, and I will be set for life. In this same scene, we also see Danny Glover receive a revolver from 1715, which establishes that the Predators have been visiting Earth for a while, and at the time, it was the furthest back in the timeline in terms of the Predators' effects on human civilization, until Alien vs. Predator when they appeared in the Mayan Age or some sort of ancient times. Predator 2 isn't a terrible film, but it is equally frustrating. While a lot of it is uninteresting, it manages to add more to the lore of the Predator species. It has some pacing issues, and some of the editing is off. The things that make it stand out are worth at least one watch. The acting is decent for the most part, but some of it's kinda bad, and the effects work is a bit better than the original. This film gets a C-.